Okay, we will go ahead and get started. Great Plains ID CTR PD group welcomes Dr. Maurice Godfrey to speak today. He earned his PhD in pathology and immunology from Columbia University in New York. Following a fellowship at Shriners Hospital for Children, he joined UNMC, where he's now professor in the Monroe-Meyer Institute. Among his honors are Basil O'Connor Scholar of March of Dimes. He's an established investigator of the AHA, American Heart Association, Antion Marfan Award of the Marfan Foundation, Chief Standing Bear Organization Award from the Nebraska Commission on Indian Affairs, and Visionary Leader in Educational Award from the University of Nebraska Medical Center. He is currently the chair of Public Education and Awareness Committee of the American Society of Human Genetics. Since 2005, he has led NIH-funded programs to bring health and health science education to schools and communities serving American Indian students in Nebraska and South Dakota. And I certainly hope today he's going to talk about his R25 IPERT grant that I'm familiar with in working with Maurice. But today his presentation is a partnership to increase health science education in Native American communities. Welcome, welcome, Dr. Godfrey.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I will mention the IPERT towards the end, and happy to answer questions at any time, so please feel free to interrupt. I don't think I could see everyone in the Zoom, the way the Zoom thing is set up, so just feel free to say something, and I'm happy to answer questions at any time. I'm going to share my screen here, and hopefully that has worked. Has that worked?
Yes, you probably, yeah, yep, you got it on the, yep, works perfect.
We're good? Okay.
Yep.
It's just funny how this thing works in Zoom. I now see it on two screens, and I'm not sure which screen is which. And anyway, so it's a pleasure to be here. We've been working with Native communities in Nebraska and South Dakota, really across the country, since 2005. In fact, we just got a bit of good news the last couple of weeks that our fourth consecutive SEPA is it's likely to be awarded. That should happen any day now. So we will be able to continue our work for a while. And I know Liliana Bronner is here, and none of these programs could work and would work without her. So just to give you a little idea of the area that we cover, and we started this in 2005, partnering with what was then called the Aberdeen Area Tribal Chairman's Health Board. It's now called the Great Plains Tribal Chairman's Health Board. When we started working with them, they were already in Rapid City, not in Aberdeen. So, but the name stuck for a while and until it changed. And with their help, and we knew we wanted to work with the tribal communities in Nebraska. So the Omaha Nation and Winnebago, the Yankton, but we knew that the numbers were relatively small, so we needed to expand. And can you see that I'm pointing? Is that does that work or not?
Yes, we can see it.
How's that? Yeah. All right. There, I turned this on.
Can you switch to your can you click on display settings on the top of your slides? We're seeing your notes view.
Oh, I see. You're seeing the wrong thing. Where's display settings? Display settings.
Oh, there we go. Swap.
Oh,
there you go.
Okay. See, I told you I was seeing two slides and I had no idea what was going where. Okay, that's better. So anyway, with the help of the Tribal Chairman's Health Board, we found some partners in South Dakota that included the Yankton Reservation, which is right across the river from the Santee community in Nebraska. So it was a logical fit. then Rosebud, a little to the west, and then in the north east corner of South Dakota, the Sisseton-Wahpeton tribe. So we've been working with these all these communities since 2005, and most recently, although this was to happen last year, and of course, as everyone knows, last year has been deleted and canceled. But someone that we worked with very closely, who was worked on Rosebud, and who actually did his doctoral dissertation on one of the programs that we've had for many years, that I'll mention in a bit, moved to become a superintendent of a largest school system on the Standing Rock reservation. So we had planned to go visit and start partnering with a new school and the new community, but it looks like that is going to just wait a little bit. And anyone who's traveled anywhere in Nebraska to go to some of these places, you know where you're going. This is a shot, and it may not be so critical for those of us who are in the plains and know about the wide open spaces. But I claim New York as home. I spent a fair amount of time in Washington at NIH and visiting with people. And they really don't have, and a lot of people who are on these study sections really don't have an idea of the vastness of the areas that we have to travel to go to some of these communities. And what I've always put in my grants, I'll see if can I go, that when you add up these areas here, you get about 40,000 square miles of coming from Omaha and visiting all of these communities. And Washington, D.C. is about 65 square miles. So I generally put that in my applications to give the reader a little bit of perspective, because often they don't have that perspective, that sometimes it takes us a 7 or 8 hour drive to go someplace, to spend some time in a community, because that's something that is critical to the work that we do. And the most critical part, and now, is to establish trust. And when we wrote our first SEPA back in 2005, that was aim one. We're going to establish trust. And in certainly my naivete at the time is, okay, we're going to, thinking as a bench researcher, which is where I was, you do aim one, and then you move on to aim two, and then you move on and so forth. So the idea that, okay, we're going to work with these communities, we're going to establish trust, and then we go on to the next thing, and that's done. But it took very little time for us to learn that this can be fleeting, and it's something that is not only ongoing, but it needs to be infused in everything that we do. So all of our first aims in all of the grants that we have written have been to establish and now maintain trust with all of our partner communities. And so we, again, work, we have a lot of people within UNMC. We work with the Tribal Chairman's Health Board in Rapid City. There are some 16 schools on 7 different reservations in Nebraska and South Dakota. We work with the NICE program, the Native Indigenous Centered Education Program of the Omaha Public Schools. We also work with the Ponca Education group. That's the quote unquote urban Indian population. Their headquarters in Norfolk, not exactly an urban center, but they have centers in Omaha and Lincoln and Norfolk, South Sioux City and Niobrara. And so we've spent time in those communities, and sometimes those students come to us. And then in reference to the IPERT that Chichi mentioned a little bit ago is the American Indian Higher Education Consortium, and they are the umbrella organization for the 37 or so tribal colleges that exist. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. And again, just to maintain this emphasis on trust, because it's really important that is part of everything that we do. Are we perfect? No. Are partnerships perfect? No. Do mistakes happen all the time? The thing is, how do we learn from them? And do we keep lines of communication open and honest so that everyone can do their best to give students opportunities, which is in the end what we really want to do. So we first started with our SEPA Science Education Partnership Award. SEPA has had several interesting evolutions. When we first started, SEPA was part of NCRR, which was the National Center for Research Resources, which is one of the NIH institutes, which no longer exists. And then, so again, we've been continuously funded since 2005. So, and our fourth one is the one that should be coming on board, hopefully before April 30th, because that way we can get a supplement that is due on at the end of this month. But back in 2013, or when NCRR disappeared and the new clinical research center took its place at NIH, which is what your group is all about, the SEPA and the Office of Science Education, which was part of NIH, were moved into the director's office. And so SEPA was run right out of Francis Collins's place. And NIH is a huge bureaucracy, as we all know, and SEPA is a less than a sliver of the NIH budget, but it is the largest component of public education that exists within NIH. And by public, it's the K-8 and or K-12 rather, and museums that were all funded, that could be funded by SEPA. And SEPA is capped at one grant per institution. So we have one, Lincoln has one, and I don't know if I had heard that UNO was applying, and I don't know if they did, and if they did, whether they were funded. But every institution can have one or apply for one, and it's a great way to build programs that can go to schools and communities, and that's where we found that targeting our partners in Native communities in Nebraska and South Dakota was a way to try to boost that science. We also learned, again, back in 2005, that UNMC had a program to work with one of the local tribal colleges in a post-secondary environment to get students into allied health fields. And maybe in 7 or 8 years of this program, they had one graduate. There was very little information, but we knew right then that it was important for us, if we were to do this and to make a difference, that we start early. So we began our first SEPA, and UNMC is primarily a graduate institution. We started as a K-8 program, and to build, again, the trust, and to work with students and teachers and communities to try to bring health and science education. One of the first, this is a very old slide, but it's really telling and really important to set the the stage of where we were. And while I hope to have more recent data coming soon, we have analyses ongoing, but it's something that was really telling. Again, this was a K-8 program, and we surveyed teachers in our partner schools and asked them to identify, and the groups are grade levels. So K to 2, 3 to, I think it's 3 to or 2 to 4, and then 5 to 8 or 6 to 8, maybe 6. So 6 to 8 is the group 3, the K to 2, and then this is 3 to 5. So to ask teachers where their students struggled when it came to science. And as the concepts, late elementary and middle school, the concepts get a little more difficult, then there was more challenge that existed for the students. The teachers were then asked to think of that in that same frame for themselves. Whoops, what the heck happened here? And so here was the challenge areas for the students and the challenge areas for the teachers. The graphs are almost superimposable. So it told us that there's no wonder that the students are struggling with these concepts, because the teachers themselves are struggling with these concepts. So we had to develop a strategy to bring science education and coaching to elementary and middle school teachers so they could better serve their students. And we have been doing that ever since. Again, except for last year, where teachers did not want another Zoom, which is certainly understandable. So among the things that we try to do is working with those who have expertise, and it certainly wasn't us, but by having resources, we try to find people with expertise to add as much cultural component to all of our outreach, all of our science. And one of the things that was developed that was in the beginning, I think this goes back to 2007 maybe, was a summer program, a summer camp. I'll talk about summer camp in a minute, and Liliana Bronner is on here, and she's been instrumental in all of that. But to do something related to ethnobotany. And we thought this was essentially a one and done. We'll do this in the summer, and the kids will learn a little bit about plants in the plains, go out with an elder and identify some of these, and then we're done. So we had the common name, the scientific name in a native language, and we had 3 different native languages featured, depending on whether it was known or not, and how this plant was used by the Plains Indians, by early settlers, etc. Well, then this thing took on a life of its own. And there was a time when the Lincoln Public Schools, and I don't know if they still do, but for several years, in Nebraska, you learn about the state in 4th grade. And so the Lincoln Public Schools bought this curriculum from us to use in their 4th grade learning about Nebraska. And other groups have too. And I know that, I mean, the plants of the plains are different from the plants of the Southwest, but when we presented this at the annual SEPA meeting, that programs in Arizona wanted to use this. Of course, they would have to change the plants, but to fit the flora of their area. And one of the things that we did that was kind of fun was working with the University of Illinois. They developed essentially an augmented reality version So one could see these plants pop up in 3 dimensions from a 2-dimensional page. And in fact, in the newest version, which is not, so each plant had a little icon that was associated with it, but more sophisticated AR technology actually allowed this plant to be seen, this diagram to be seen by the software, and that plant pop up in 3 dimensions, which was a way that engaged students. So that was always fun. The other thing that we know that test taking is a skill, and it's a learned skill, but understanding what is being asked is also important. And a lot of Native students struggle on standardized tests. A lot of students struggle on standardized tests. And it often is because they don't understand what's being asked. So and I don't have that word here, and we've done some pilot studies. In fact, we have a manuscript out for review now. But we came up with some 30-some different words in 2 sets, a set for elementary school and a different set for middle and high school that has more words, maybe 18 words and 30-some words, that are found on standardized testing. But instead of having a definition of the word, there is not only a diagram, but there is an action that is being asked by that word. And one of the words that was tossed out by the teachers, because this all was driven by teachers who work with Native students, was the word solve. And it wasn't initially used in some of the testing, but it turned out that a lot of students will get a math exam and it'll say solve, and they really don't know what that means, because in their day-to-day classroom, the teacher isn't telling them to solve the problem, is saying to find an answer. So little things like that can really throw the student off. So we developed these. We've developed math ones as well to help the teachers and students. And a little bit of data has shown that the more the students use these words and in teaching, the more they're understood, and hopefully the translation will be that they do better on their exams. I would say the cornerstone of our SEPA programs has been the summer camp for middle school students. That first one was in 2006, and it went continuously until last year. We've gone to different colleges. In fact, our very first one, and I was just recollecting this, and back in 2006, we had decided to do these camps in the communities. And so we would rotate from one community to the next. And I recall arriving to that community that first day, bright and early on a Monday morning, ready for the 20 to 30 students who had signed up to attend. And we arrived at the school, and the school was locked down tight. And there was nobody around. And finally, we found someone who knew someone who might have the key. But one person had been fired, and they probably took the keys with them. It was a very interesting experience. By the end of the day, we had a couple of students come in, because when the bus driver arrived, he said, well, no one really felt like coming. So those are the challenges that we started with. And I can tell you now that the programs that we've had lately have been standing room only. So again, that notion of establishing trust and of not giving up, of continuing to go and attend programs. And so this is one from 2014 that we held in South Dakota at Augustana College. I think they're now Augustana University, but at the time they were Augustana College. We've partnered with Sanford Research, again in Sioux Falls, to bring these programs. We partnered with them in a few different endeavors. But pictures are important, and seeing students actually do things. And I chose this picture for two. This is a compilation that we've had for a while. But this is Dave Wilson over here and here. Dave has come to UNMC a number of times. But the first time that he was supposed to come was in 2008, when we received additional funding from the National Human Genome Research Institute to run a DNA Day program. And I'll talk in a moment about our full day programs. But at the time, Dave was a postdoc at the Aging Institute in Baltimore. And NHGRI, which funded our DNA Day program, thought, wouldn't it be great to find native scientists at NIH and have them come to Nebraska/South Dakota to join us in this program? So they did, independent of the funding that we received, they did a call across NIH looking for people who might be interested in traveling and coming out. And Dave was one of those people who said, yes, I'll go. And Catherine Zarama was a graduate student at NIH. Technically, you can't be a graduate student at NIH. You can do your work there, but you have to be enrolled someplace. And I have her dissertation somewhere in a bookcase behind me. But she was in the Institute of Communication Disorders. I can't remember what it's called officially. But anyway, so she was native from one of the tribes in Michigan. So she flew out. And when I went to the airport to pick her up and pick Dave Wilson up, I heard my name over the intercom, and Catherine said, they've been calling your name. And it turned out that when Dave Wilson went to the airport in Baltimore to fly to Omaha, he had a reservation, but he didn't have a ticket, because the National Institute on Aging did not believe that NHGRI, another institute at NIH, was really going to pay for his ticket. So they didn't buy one. It wasn't until much later that Dave was able to come out. He missed that DNA Day program, but he was able to come out and has come out several times. Dave is now the director of tribal health research at NIH in the director's office. So we've been friends for a long time, and he's been very supportive of the work that we're doing. And in fact, he invited us, and Liliana Bronner and I are about to submit a program to neurological diseases and stroke, to have a program, a summer program for Native high school students that will go in depth into research experiences, and of course, having clinical and translational science as part of that would be something that we'd be very interested in talking about. The other person in the picture here is Belinda Sato, and right now I'm at the new MMI over on the other, more like the UNO campus of the university. Dr. Sato was the acting director of NIBIB, bioinformatics, I think it is. I can't recall exactly what it stands for. But back in our very first SEPA, NIBIB asked if they could contribute some funds to the education programs that existed at NIH. And Tony Beck, the program officer, sent her a portfolio of different grants and said, well, choose which one you like. And she happened to choose ours. And then she said, you know, I want to go and see a program where our money is being used. So she came to Nebraska for a day and was part of our summer camp program. And I can tell you that was, again, in those early years, we were doing a forensics experience. And in those early years, we had very few students signed up. In fact, we actually had 16 students who had signed up for that camp, but only 8 attended. And so here is an official from NIH who's funding our program, is coming to Nebraska, and we only have 8 students. And I thought, that's it, we're done. We're toast. At the end of that day, she came up to me and said, this was the best day I've spent working at NIH in a very long time. So I felt good about that. I mentioned our DNA Day programs. So back in 2008, we got additional funding from NHGRI, and we did a whole day program and this is kind of something that we have as one of our stock programs, so to speak. We go around and students really enjoy extracting DNA, doing different things. Here's Rebops as an example. So we do this from as part of our visits to schools, among other things. But we also started to partner with other groups. You know, we partnered with the University of Illinois and their SEPA program to do a neuroscience day. And students, again, middle school students did things that are a little different from the high school students, but everyone together did a whole host of different activities. Graduate students at UNMC organized a physiology understanding, a fun day a few years ago. And again, we had a host of students. We had a booklet, and students would go from station to station to do a variety of activities. This was the diver reflex. So, you know, student puts his, and their vitals were monitored. And again, engaging students in these kinds of activities when they're young is critical to get them to think about this as something that they'd like to pursue. We have a student now, or had a student who began as one of the middle school campers and then went into a program that we have for high school students and is now actually an RHOP student at Wayne State College, with a path to medical school at UNMC. So maybe the numbers aren't huge, but I think the impact of those who are entering health and science professions at the moment. But I think the impact is large on the individuals. This is a little bit of data again from that physiology day, that students did learn some things as the day went on. Another thing that was something that was noticed as we were, again, traveling to schools that established trust piece is that we would see posters in classrooms of famous Native people in a variety of fields, but most of them were dead, and none of them were in modern health and science professions. And we knew we wanted students to know that these were within their reach. And so we began a series of role model posters. And you can have them as little baseball cards. There's a website that one can go to and do kind of a searchable database of people and professions. And there were, I think, on here, yeah, we asked each person for their words of wisdom. What would they want to say to today's Native youth about their path to a career or anything? We just left that open. And our second set of posters I don't know if they still are, but they at one time were in the visitor center hanging in the visitor center at NIH. So that was pretty neat. The first native dentist was George Blue Spruce, I think from Arizona, or it could be New Mexico, but he went to dental school in Omaha at Creighton back in 1956. Wrote a terrific autobiography, and we have visited with him a number of times. Jessica Ann Rickard is the first native female dentist. And we featured her, and she has actually featured our stuff in lots of dental programs that she takes part. And it's really important to show that she has used our posters to showcase to students that they can reach these professions. So that's been quite gratifying. And the nice thing is she keeps in touch with us. Well, she keeps in touch with Liliana, always sending her different places where she's brought posters and materials and baseball cards. The other program that we have that's a little newer is something called Youth Enjoy Science, and it's funded by the National Cancer Institute, and that includes a research component. And we partner with Dr. Joyce Solheim at the Cancer Center and Dr. Regina Iduata in the College of Public Health. So research is not just bench research that someone like me is accustomed to, but other kinds of research that's more public health based. And so Gina has taken students into these arenas of public health research that has been really eye-opening and fascinating. And a plug for we have a virtual research forum that will happen on April 23rd in the afternoon, where our YES students, both high school and undergraduate students, will present the work that they've been doing. So that's going to be open. I can have Heather, I can send you the link and announcement. You can pass it on to people if they're interested. We've invited NIH to be part of this and other YES programs. We were one of the first 5 YES programs that were funded, and there are, I think, 13 or 14 that are funded now across the country, and hopefully the new FOA will appear this summer, so then we can continue that work. Through that, we've developed, some of you at UNMC may be familiar with, I have it on the next slide, okay. May be familiar with the UBEATS program that has modules to bring science education because of our High School Alliance program, so to a broader audience. And so I've done a lot of the genetics one for that, but we've done a couple related to cancer. That is available, the stages of cancer and hallmarks of cancer. We have some cancer vocabulary, biology vocabulary games kind of set up as like a Jeopardy style game that students can then learn vocabulary. And the latest thing that we have, and it's being, we have a radon and cancer comic book, and there will be a module that's under development now because radon can be an issue certainly in Nebraska it is. And so that it was one of the projects that Aislinn Rookwood took over as our manager of our YES program and working with Native students in the Omaha Public Schools primarily. This is that virtual forum that I mentioned on April 23rd. Again, everyone is welcome. I can send that to you in the schedule as soon as it's available. So what Chichi mentioned earlier was the IPERT. And the IPERT, again, is our partnership. And just today, we actually had a call with AHEC, the American Indian Higher Education Consortium, to talk about how this program may move forward. So in 2018, we had the program not very far from where I'm sitting now, across the way here on the UNO campus, but we did the program primarily in the College of Public Health. And we had, I think it was 10 students who came to Omaha, and we did, the focus was research in public health, in nursing, and in behavioral health. But of course, because they're on campus, we brought them to see other aspects of what happens. What's interesting is one of these students, I think this is him right here, but Liliana will correct me because I'm get this wrong. But because of his really good experience that he had on our campus, he participated last year in the Summer Health Professions Education Program, the SHPEP, that we have. Again, last year it was virtual, and it's going to be virtual again this summer. We had a break in funding for the IPERT because of a technical glitch. But once we got refunded, again, we went into a pandemic year. So the Institute became a virtual one where different faculty from UNMC, again, in nursing and behavioral health and public health, did different talks, and these were uploaded onto a virtual platform like a Canvas, something called Toolwire or Praxis. I think Toolwire might be the company, and Praxis is the forum, or vice versa. They are planning again to do an IPERT and would like more faculty involvement as mentors. So if anyone is interested in that, please feel free to reach out. And they've noticed that when the talks are long, in a virtual format, it's not as appreciated as if the talks were short. So we're going to have to do some rethinking and reconfiguring on how we do this. Again, the model is generally people come into a room and they sit down, and then they listen and they ask questions. When you're watching a video, and a lot of these students learned today that the tribal colleges are still closed. Everything is virtual, and it will be virtual until the end of this year. So that's still a long way to go. When all of your classes are in a online setting, it becomes you don't have the attraction to do another virtual program. It becomes more difficult. But if we had more of a synchronous connection with students, at least in terms of mentoring and guidance, then maybe there'll be a little more compliance of going through in looking at these videos and doing reflections. And Liliana has been grading these reflections that students come that they write after viewing all the different parts of the program. So there's a lot of content that's available for students, but it's never the same as if they're in the room with you in seeing research and the pathways to research careers. So NIH has funded all of our work, and we're certainly grateful to that. And I am particularly grateful to all of our UNMC collaborators, and certainly others in lots of places who do a tremendous amount of work to bring programs. And what we've learned from all of our partners is that it's critical that we spend time on the ground, spend time in the communities. And they certainly appreciate the fact that we do spend time in the communities and don't phone it in or email it in. It's been very it's been very difficult for us in the last year that we can't travel and visit our partner communities. We just learned recently that some of the schools in South Dakota are opening up and are ready to welcome us back, and we're happy and anxious to start heading back, hopefully soon. Anyway, thank you all, and I'm happy to take any questions.
There were a couple things in the chat. The website, I was able to access it, but I think somebody was not. So if you could maybe send Heather your name and she'll get it to you in an email, I guess, or maybe you can just Google it and find it. Questions? So Maurice, I understand we're kind of hopefully going to be a go then again, maybe with the on-site having students visit UNMC. Are you thinking that, or do you think the virtual will still be?
For this coming summer, it's definitely virtual.
It is virtual, okay.
Right. We did find out that we can have students in person at UNMC. We can have them in the dorms this summer. Because we obviously use the UNO dorms, and they actually don't have a lot of programs. So they said if there's any time that they can be flexible, this is the summer where they can be flexible because of having lots of space and not that many programs booked in. So the one program that I mentioned that Liliana and I are working on in connecting with some of our partner schools might be a hybrid program, because some of the schools are not comfortable with their students traveling, but we do want to work with students within Omaha as well. So the Omaha students, we would need to put them in a dorm, but they could come to campus. We have the High School Alliance Lab that is a terrific new facility over in the Williams Science Hall, and that we can use to, again, do the more hands-on type of work that one can do. The other thing I didn't mention as part of our new SEPA is a partnership with 7 Generation Games, which is a company. Now it's based in Minneapolis, but they were based in Santa Monica, California. But they moved because there are some really good benefits to having your company in Minnesota to do computing work and assistance from the state in hiring programmers. So they moved their headquarters to Minneapolis. But they've developed a lot of math content that is focused, again, for younger students, but focused on Native communities and Hispanic communities. One of the things, Liliana just put their website. One of the things that they're working on now, and they've gotten it's a company, so they get these SBIR grants, and USDA for some reason funds a lot of these math games. So they have a game now, or a series of games that are focused on epidemiology and statistics in a pandemic. And it will have a component for teachers to be able to personalize games for their classroom in building modular units of a game. So they will be coming in and working with our teachers, the teachers that we work with, to bring those ideas to our partner communities and schools. And we're also working with Dr. Tom Helikar, who's a faculty at UNL in mathematics, to bring big data ideas to these students as well.
Other questions for
Yes,
Dr.
Kiki.
Godfrey?
I'm a faculty member at UNO, and trained, obviously I'm a molecular biologist, but my research interest and many of the teaching related activities are currently focused on engaging school students. And one of the things that I was always interested in was, health education, communicating health. So since my research is more focused on colorectal cancer and, herbs and technology-assisted farming, I was interested, in developing some courses that would help educate about diabetes and how things that you eat can affect your health. Is there room for this kind of engagement in your program?
Absolutely. That would be a great thing to add to what we do. Yeah, so you said you're at UNO?
Yes.
Okay, so you're right across the way from me, that way.
Actually, yes, I am in PKI. Yes, I'm housed in PKI. So maybe.
Oh, so you're even closer than that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So let's meet soon.
Okay.
Please send me a note. We can meet any time. That'd be great.
Okay. Sounds great.
I actually there's something very specific that we can do even sooner than later.
Sure. So I'll try to reach out as soon as I can.
Thank you.
Other questions? Does anybody have any other comments or connections you'd like to share with Dr. Godfrey?
Just want to thank him and his team for the life-changing efforts that you've done for the education and improving the world we share.
I agree, yeah. And if anybody has any additional contacts that you think Maurice could benefit from, please send them to him, because everybody kind of has people.
Absolutely. This is a definitely a group effort, and the more people who are interested in bringing programs. There was a time when we first started in 2005, we were kind of the only game in town in a lot of places, and now we're not, and that's really gratifying to see that there are lots of places. I know that Sanford Research and Sanford Health in South Dakota has been doing tremendous things in the communities there and in other places where they have clinical enterprises. We've partnered with, I mentioned University of Illinois and our graduate students. We've partnered with the Milwaukee School of Engineering. We're still partnering with them and bringing molecular based programming to students. They actually came out with 6 engineering undergraduate students to do one of these full day programs a few years ago. And that was just a great experience for the students, and did mention all the behavioral health things that we've done over the years, including the Great Plains conference that was a behavioral health conference.
Any other comments, questions? Well, thank you very much. On behalf of the IDEA CTR, this is great. And I think getting these kinds of presentations out and having people be aware of some of the resources we have is what our goal is. But thank you again, Maurice. This was great.
My pleasure. Thank you all. Thank you.